Hello, 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 and welcome to the Full Quota Podcast, the weekly edition of the Full Quota Podcast. We're on every Tuesday, and so myself and Tim are here to take you through this week's edition of the Full Quota Podcast. We have a special guest lined up for you for this podcast, and so we're very excited to bring him on. But before we continue with anything, we'd like for you to remember that you can like and subscribe to this podcast. But most importantly, do tweet into us at GuerrillaSA, GUERILLASA, and at One World Sports Radio, One World SR on Twitter. But most importantly, please do press the like button on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me just give you a sense of where you can interact with us. Mostly on this podcast, on the various One World Sports Radio platforms. We're active on all of those. So if you send us messages, we will reply. Ideally today, we do have a special guest. Tim, thank you very much for organizing. We have Mr. Roland Butcher with us, who is known around the world as the first black cricketer to represent England in international cricket. However, he is born in Barbados and is currently working in the Caribbean and has been in the Caribbean for a few decades, looking at West Indian cricket and being a part of those structures in that side. Mr. Butcher played 3 tests for England and 3 ODIs. And he also had 12,000 first-class runs and 4,800 List A runs, which is a whole lot more than the rest of us, myself and Tim, have combined. So welcome, Mr. Butcher. Thank you very much for joining us on the Full Quota Podcast.
Gentlemen, great to be here, and it's a pleasure. Looking forward to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butcher. As you mentioned in our little introductions, you alluded to us being very happy at winning a Test series as South Africans, which I think we are, because we haven't won Test series in a while. It's been 4 years since we won a Test series away from home. But how did you view this Test series as a general cricket watcher and possibly a supporter of the West Indies?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Test series really was an examination of how far West Indies cricket has come in the last year or so. I always expected that it would be a very, very tough series for them. The only question was going to be whether West Indies could perform against a potent South African bowling lineup, something they didn't really have to face in the last 2 series against Bangladesh and against Sri Lanka. Obviously, the winning in Bangladesh was a fantastic performance based on the fact that many teams don't win in Bangladesh, even though West Indies took a new team. And really what they did there surprised, I guess, everyone in the Caribbean in terms of their performances individually and as a team, and then more importantly to win the series. That was followed by a series against Sri Lanka, which ended in a drawn series. And again, Sri Lanka, a side in transition, a bit better than Bangladesh, but not of the caliber of someone like South Africa, who, even though despite the problems that South Africa would have been encountering in the last 6 months, etc., in response to the problems with the board and etc., when you look at the 2 teams, you always felt that South Africa was going to give a very good account of themselves. And the only question for me was whether West Indies would be able to play to the standard to give South Africa a run for their money. And you saw actually what happened in the 2 Test matches.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think to start off with, and Tim can come in back on the back end. At the beginning of the series, I think we've seen throughout the decades West Indies cricket going through different phases, and especially at the start of 2010, it was a bit of a new rebuild. And then when Jason Holder took over, there was also some sort of another rebuild in that Test lineup. Where does West Indies cricket find itself, especially along the format, in Test cricket? Because it seems like it's a bit of a tricky situation.
Well, it's more than tricky. It's a dire situation, really. In actual fact, you can say they're really struggling. Um, I think at this moment in time, it is possible that they could win a test match against a higher ranked team, but that to win a series against a higher ranked team at this really our team. I think the biggest problem for West certainly now has been the batting. Really, they haven't really produced the quality of batsmen that you associate with West Indies cricket of the past, and that really has been something that has let the team down consistently in all series. And again, it was evident in this series that the batting really was not up to standard. The bowling held its own, but when runs in every innings,
Roland.
You there?
yes, I'm still here. I can see.
Okay.
Okay. We lost you a bit for that last sentence.
And I lost you as well. But what I was saying is that because of the poor batting by the West Indies side, it means that the work done by the fast bowlers for the West Indies really doesn't put them in a position where they can win games, because you're getting ball out cheaply. So the bowlers are under pressure right from the beginning. They're doing a pretty good job, but because runs are not on the board, it makes their task almost impossible. And that's proven again in this series in all 4 innings, where West Indies were only able to put together one half-century partnership in the entire series. 150 scored in the series and didn't score 200 runs in an innings. Test matches with those sort of performances. So, the problem squarely is on the shoulders of the batsmen. And really, they have got to shoulder all that blame for the 2 test series, the 2 test match losses.
Why did you think there's such a gap between performances in the 24 match and the test format?
I think it's quite simple. The test match format is what it is. It's a test. Obviously, it's played over 5 days. It's played with a different ball, a red ball. The Duke's ball is a ball that swings and moves off the seam. Stays shiny for much longer. Batsmen tend to leave a lot more deliveries in Test cricket. There's slips and gullies in place, and batsmen, because of the length of time of the game, invariably is very cautious in the way they play. Now, if you change to white ball cricket, which is the complete opposite, you have a white ball that doesn't stay long. It doesn't stay shiny for very long. Bowlers tend to be bowling more negatively than attacking. You've got no slips and gullies in place for any periods of time. You've got limited number of persons, obviously, you can put in the outfield, etc., particularly in the power play overs. So it's all set up really, white ball cricket, for batsmen to be very aggressive and expansive. And in many ways, batsmen can play a carefree sort of game. And they'll get away with it because edges doesn't carry to slips because there's no slips. So they can go for the big drive, where, as you saw in the test matches, you go for the big drive and there's 3 slips in the gully waiting. You don't quite get it right, the ball moves away, gets the outside edge, and you're caught. So those are the differences why West Indies can be more competitive in the white ball game. They've got generally, power hitters, and as you know, in white ball cricket, particularly T20 cricket, the boundaries are generally smaller than normal cricket for the obvious reasons. They're looking for the entertainment factor, and batsmen are able to clear the boundaries more easily in white ball cricket than they can in Test cricket. So, but in Test cricket, your technique really, your technique comes under scrutiny, and they have been found wanting really in the Test match. Being able to survive good sustained fast bowling for a period of time has proven to be a real problem.
I think that's a interesting one point that you make in terms of being able to sustain good fast bowling for a very long period of time. I'm going to take you back to probably when you were playing, and then probably bring it closer to today. How has the first class game transformed, and that's the 4-day game, transformed in West Indies over time? Because West Indies produced a world-beating team in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, but somehow that seemingly has decreased. Has what is the cause of that? Is it the level of quality, or the level of quantity of players coming through the system that may not be enough, and then so it just decreases the quality of the cricket?
There are many reasons. What I would say back in certainly the time when I played in the 70s, 80s, 90s, the cricket was certainly a lot tougher and better in the Caribbean. What I would also say is that during that period, you also played on better pitches. When I say better pitches, you had much quicker, bouncier pitches. The bounce was true. There were a lot of fast bowlers. So, it's something that you played on a regular basis. So you became used to it. And obviously the players were able to perform. I think what has happened over the last 25 years or so, the pitches in the Caribbean generally has been pretty poor, actually. They've been very slow, low, not good for fast bowling, not good for batting. Has been dominated regionally by spinners, and not particularly good spinners. Wickets in these conditions, that's happened for 25 years. So really our batsmen have had no practice against, quality fast bowling on international pitches. In the last couple of years, there have been an effort to try and improve the standard of first-class pitches in the region. And the pitch you saw in St. Lucia, for me, that's the type of pitch that we need to produce around the Caribbean more often, so that players get used to playing on those pitches, so that when they come into the test match, it's nothing new. When they come into test matches here, particularly in this 2 test match series, it looked as if this is the first time they were playing on this sort of surface. And in most cases, it is because the pitches are not generally like that. So it's also a disadvantage to the West Indies. Obviously, it's an advantage that their bowlers can bowl on those surfaces, but the batsmen really struggle, and you saw it in this series. Now, if I take you back years ago, as I said, I think also there was a better quality of player around at that time, and there were many reasons for that. Not just because the competition in the region was so strong, but all the players taking part were true professionals, in the sense that nearly all of them played their trade in somewhere like England, where they were playing for counties as first-class cricketers, and many of them actually went to England in terms of playing in the leagues, learning their craft, and then getting a county contract. Obviously, they then perform well in county cricket, which, not just the cricket itself, but the fact that they had to become professional cricketers, because back then in the Caribbean, really, cricket was very much an amateur sport in terms of, you just play the game, but you didn't really understand what it was like to be a professional. But playing in England, where in most cases, obviously, you're 4,000 miles away from home, you've got to look after yourself, you're practicing, you have to turn up to practice on time, you have to cook, you have to wash. And as you know, England is quite a big place, so you do a lot of driving. All of those things help you to become a professional cricketer. And in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that very much was very prevalent. And that contributed to some wonderful West Indian players, not just the initial 11 players, but the whole bench in terms of reserves was very strong. But obviously, since then, we've had a situation where England have gradually reduced the number of overseas players in their teams. Also in club cricket, where a lot of our players really got their grounding and then gravitated in England, that also is now becoming very difficult for players to get those opportunities because of the something called the managed migration policy by the Foreign Office in UK, which now places anyone who has played cricket for their country at a under 15, under 17 level. So someone who played for Barbados at under 15, under 17 level is now placed on something that they call the pathway to being a professional. So if that player is now 22 and they only played for Barbados at under 15 or under 17, they're still on that pathway. And it means that they cannot play in England because they seem to be on the pathway to be a professional. Now, the only way you can play in England as a professional now, even in club cricket, you would have had to play 5 first-class matches in the last year. So someone who hasn't even played representative cricket for 5 years has no chance. So that's really happened, and that's hampering the West Indies badly. It's hampering other parts of the world as well, because, as I said, that's the sort of thing that they've brought in now, which means that our young players who would go to England and learn the game playing in Lancashire, etc., cannot be afforded that opportunity. So, it's pretty tough for these young players here now, because they're having to learn the game in the Caribbean on wickets that are not conducive for good cricket, structures that are perhaps not as professional as they should be. But then those same players are expected to now compete at the test level against the best in the world. So the playing field right now at the moment is not very good for them. So West Indies at this moment in time has to find a way to improve the quality of their cricketers, because they're falling at this moment in time way behind the rest of the world.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Paul, can I take this one?
Sure.
Yeah. I guess with that answer, I'd like to know, in terms of, we hear a lot of sports that are now overtaking cricket in terms of interest when it comes to the youth of the West Indies. Sports like basketball. Is that also having a detrimental effect to the youngsters coming through the systems? They're now having fewer players to choose from because they're choosing other sports. Is that also something that's happening?
Yeah, Tim, that's a very good question. And the answer to that, really, yes. I think young kids these days have many more options than, say, during my time. Basically, when I go back to being a youngster here in Barbados, I lived in a very rural parish. So the opportunities to play many sports was very limited. So basically, in the rural parishes, you had 2 options. You either play cricket or you did track and field. There was nothing else. Now, these days, youngsters have got far more options in terms of what they can do. They can play cricket, they can play football, they can play tennis, they can play basketball, swimming, all sorts of other things. So they're taking those options. And I think also since the 80s, a new phenomenon really has come on the surface, and that's the video games, etc., which now, kids are very much into that. So that they're all competing for the same amount of kids. So, some sports, work hard and aggressively to get the kids, others less. So really, there has been a dilution in the Caribbean, certainly, of people playing cricket. I would say the number 1 sport really now in the Caribbean in terms of participation is soccer, football. There's no question about that. I mean, it's not even close in terms of the numbers with cricket. Even here in Barbados, I think cricket, with our tradition and our culture and our history, cricket is probably still about 3rd, because you've got football, then you've got netball, and then you've got cricket. So everybody's fighting for the talent. I would say cricket hasn't done a very good job in trying to harvest the talent. I think for many years, cricket has relied upon that history and culture, that people would come to the game without being as forceful as they should be in trying to bring people to the game. Where, as you know, football has been very, very aggressive in going after these kids, these talented kids, because in the past, the players played all sports. They played cricket, they played football, they played tennis. They played all of those sports. I think also what is happening now is that each sport is trying to specialize a lot more. So if a sport gets hold of a youngster, they don't want him to play other sports. And I think that has cut down the number of people, and I think it's also hampering the skills of those players as well, because they're not allowed to develop their skills in other sports, and that's headed to reduced numbers available to cricket and to any other sport because of that individual sport wanting to totally control that young player. So those are things that really we need to address. But definitely your question is a very good one. Yes, people are doing other sports, and surely at the end of the day, yes, I mean, it will affect cricket because you will have less people available to play the game.
Roland, in terms of, as you mentioned in your first question, the dire state of West Indies cricket, and you kind of explained all the different facets as we've gone along with the questions. Can this be turned around? What do you think the roadmap is? Does West Indies cricket have the right people to turn this around and get cricket back to what it was? Get West Indies cricket back to its rightful place, in my opinion, at the top of world cricket.
It can be turned around, but it will not be an easy job, I can tell you. It will be a very difficult job, and it will need a lot of cooperation right throughout the Caribbean. As you know, the Caribbean is spread far and wide, and in each country, you have a different problem. So that in itself is a problem, getting the entire Caribbean to come together. Yes, it can be turned around, but, I think some of the things that you would need to do in order to do that, one of the big things in Caribbean cricket is, funding is very hard to come by. And when you're spread so far and wide, the funding doesn't go very far. So they need to find ways to increase the funding. CWI are doing as good a job as they can with the available funding, but it's nowhere near enough to certainly get cricket back on a good footing. I think also in the individual territories, a lot of work has to be done in the individual territories because in reality, Cricket West Indies don't produce players. Players are produced by the individual territories. And if the individual territories do not have the expertise, if they don't have the facilities, if they don't have the money to develop the sport in their country and the resources in terms of the right sort of coaches, etc., etc. If they don't have all of that in place in their own country, what they'll actually be producing is a substandard player that they then pass on to the West Indies team. So the role of the individual territories becomes very, very paramount. They have to get their act in order first, from youth cricket right away through. So they really need some help as well. West Indies Cricket Board, they're trying to do the best they can. It's costing them an absolute fortune to try and run the cricket, but the territories, they have their role to play. If the territories don't get it right, then you're going to have a problem. And in actual fact, within the territories, they have their problems themselves because the territories, most are made up of, they have their cricket, each has a cricket board. And generally the cricket boards are made up of not necessarily persons who have been involved in high level cricket, either playing, coaching or managing or anything of that nature, or have been involved in high performance. There basically have been people selected on the boards, maybe because of their popularity, where they can solicit the number of votes to get them on the boards. So you have that problem right across the region where the boards are made up of persons like that. Now, CWI are trying through a report that they had done recently called the Wavy Report, where they are basically trying to get the territorial boards to appoint independent directors. And obviously that has met with great resistance because the directors on those boards, see that they're going to be losing their power base, and there's great resistance. Now, if you cannot come together like that. West Indies cricket is really going to continue in this hole. You're going to have times where they perform well, but in terms of consistent improvement, you're not going to see it. That's something that, individually, those countries have got to say, listen, we're doing this for the good of West Indies cricket. It cannot be about Barbados or Trinidad or Jamaica. It has to be about West Indies cricket, because West Indies as a region is known only by cricket. It is not known for anything else. Our cricketers have reached legendary status around the world. They're revered around the world in the past, those cricketers. So, a prime minister can leave this region and go any part of the world, and nobody knows him, or nobody really cares. Cigar field sobers go to any part of the world, and once they hear the name Cigar field sobers, everybody knows them. It could be anywhere. So that has been the history of cricket in this region. That's why it means so much. Now, in the territories, I think really those individuals have got to put West Indies cricket before their own interests and look to, assist CWI in getting West Indies cricket back on a good footing. As you know, West Indies dominated cricket for a long time. It's so sad, really, for 25 years now that this team and this proud cricketing nation has been suffering, and supporters in the Caribbean and supporters outside of the Caribbean, not just West Indian supporters of West Indian origin, but there are lots of West Indian supporters in other parts of the world who just enjoy the way West Indies used to play cricket. They're suffering as well. And really, the young players now really have to carry that burden. So they need a lot of help. CWI are trying. The cost is huge. I mean, now we have franchise teams. There are 6 franchises around, but those franchises are all funded by CWI themselves. They have to find the money to fund the franchises. Each franchise has 15 players, 15 contracted players. So CWI, in actual fact, are funding the franchises. There's 6 of them. $50,000 a month for a board that is always struggling for money, because West Indies cannot make money because of the way the Future Tours program is set up. The Future Tours program is set up in such a way that the team that plays at home takes all the revenue. While that may sound good, it's death to teams like West Indies, Zimbabwe, and teams like that, because when you play in Australia, West Indies go to Australia, Melbourne, you'll have 100,000, you'll have 60,000 in Sydney, you'll have 50,000 in Brisbane and Perth, you'll have another 60,000. Right. Australia takes all the revenue. West Indies take nothing. Now you come to the Caribbean, Australia come back to the Caribbean, and the largest crowd we'll have in the Caribbean is Trinidad, which is 15,000. And 15,000 people paying $5 doesn't equate to a great deal. And then when you go into the other countries, obviously, and the cost of travel around the Caribbean is horrendous. So when you're moving players around, hotel costs, so West Indies cannot make money. So the Future Tours program really is killing them. And now for West Indies to have to find $300,000 out of their budget a month to fund the territories to play first-class cricket, you can see the burden that they have, because there is no sponsorship available in the region. So really, it needs all hands to the pump. It needs help from outside. ICC can play their part, but West Indies cricket really, I think they're in for the long haul, and it's going to be very, very rough for a long time.
Yes. And I agree completely with you, because in South Africa we have the same issue. In terms of trying to find funding for the different provinces and trying to get some independent people into the main CSA board. I think we've only got time for one more question, and I wanted to ask slightly one that's more relevant with the times right now. There's been a rise of anti-racism sentiment around the cricketing world over the past year, and the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I just wanted to know, being the first Black man to represent represent England at that in a place like England, which is quite tough, I think, on Black people. How do you feel about the anti-racism movement now compared to when you started, and your thoughts around that and what the players are doing to try and bring it to the fore?
Well, I'm very much for the whole movement because, certainly throughout my time, there was no support in terms of people speaking out during that period. So, everybody had to suffer in silence. You just did what you had to do and play. Now, 2020, 2021, this is a different time. People are now speaking out all across the world, not just in sport, but in life. And people are really saying that this is fair, this is unfair, this is injustice, and we need to do something about it. So really, it is now a global phenomenon that is going all around the world. I support it wholeheartedly because I believe it has been under the carpet for far too long, and it really needs to be addressed. In terms of anti-racism, I mean, I basically am fully supportive of that as well, and I mean racism against all peoples, not necessarily Black peoples. I mean, Black people are discriminated against because of their color, but other people are discriminated around the world for religion, for all other sorts of things. So I'm against all of those injustices, and I support anything that will certainly keep it in the public domain, something that will remind people that this is something that needs to be looked at. So yes, the only thing that I am perhaps not too pleased about is that England as a team took the knee when they played against the West Indies, and in the series since then they haven't taken the knee. And for me, that's a mistake, because really what you should be doing really is showing solidarity for the movement around the world, not necessarily because you're playing against the West Indies. This thing is not about the West Indies or the West Indies team. You're fighting injustices around the world, and I believe they've made a mistake there and should correct it. And all the teams, for me, really should be taking part in that. Not just cricket. You should really be saying that, yes, we need to do something about this. We are in the public domain. We're in a position that we can, and let's do something about it.
And Tim, do you have any final questions or comments for Mr. Butcher?
I just would like to end up on a slightly positive note. I know Paul and I were very impressed with Jaden Seals in the Test series. Do you see any youngsters coming through at the high performance like that? Because he looks like a really good talent to me, like the sort of bowler who could easily take over from Gabriel when he retires.
Yeah, he's a young talent, but again, he has a long way to go. I mean, he's only played 3 first-class matches in his life, and 2 of those are Test matches. So really, he is at the start of a career. He now has to really learn how to be a cricketer and learn how to bowl. It's going to be hard for him because he's going to be in the West Indies team right now that's going to struggle for a while. So he's not going to make the leaps and bounds that he should. In another side, a much stronger side. So it's going to be hard work for him and for a lot of the other youngsters that's in the Caribbean who, pushing to get into first-class cricket and Test cricket. So, he's made a start, and there's some others, but trust me, he has got a long, long way to go. He really now even has to go into first-class cricket and be consistent in first-class cricket. To expect him to be very consistent in Test cricket with no history of being consistent in first-class cricket. So we've got to make sure that the weight of expectation doesn't destroy him like it's destroyed a number of other players. He's a young talent, needs to be looked after, but he's got work to do.
And we've been hearing stories quickly about Nicholas Pooran. How far is he from the Test side? What's the thinking about him in the Caribbean?
Those guys are far from the Test side. I mean, they don't play first-class cricket. I'm totally against just a guy who plays T20 cricket or 50-over cricket, just bringing him into Test cricket. It's a different type of cricket, as you know. White ball, red ball, they're 2 different games. It appears as if he's made his choice as to where he prefers to be playing. If he makes himself available for Trinidad and he plays in the 4-day games and he's successful, then obviously he has a claim. But for me at this stage, I don't think he has a claim. I think people who are within the franchises working hard day in, day out to try to get into the side If someone who is not prepared to do that is just pushed into the team, then that sends a very, very bad message to the young players. So right now, I think he's a long way off.
Okay. Well, Mr. Butcher, thank you very much for your time. Really do appreciate you joining our podcast. Yeah, Tim, do you have any final words?
No, there was a fantastic conversation. It was good to get your point of view. I really enjoyed that conversation. I just would like to thank you, as Paul says, for taking your time to join us.
Gentlemen, yes, it's a great pleasure, and I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butcher. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Sure. Tim, how was that as we just add Tsepo and Chris onto the stream?
That was really good. I thought that was really insightful stuff on what's happened with West Indies cricket the last 20 years. And yeah, it was a very interesting conversation.
That was
Yes, Tsepo, yeah, you were backstage for a large part of it. What did you think?
Yeah, that was a fantastic listen. It's a great idea to get people from around the world, especially the teams that we play against, and have conversations with them, because now we got the behind the scenes look at the whole system of the West Indies and the types of challenges that they face in terms of just putting the team together and transport costs. That's something that I totally overlooked, and it's a very big deal. So yeah, it's good to see where the West Indies are. I hope that they get a little bit more in terms of development that side. We don't want the legendary West Indies not to be so legendary anymore.
Yeah, so gents, for the final 20-25 minutes of the show, I just wanted us to talk about, from a South African's perspective, your review of the West Indies Test series, and then we'll just preview the T20 series. You've got, just as a quick mention to all our viewers, One World Sports Radio has you covered for the West Indies Test Series, live radio coverage of these 5 T20 internationals, starting on Saturday all the way through until the following Saturday. Essentially, it's a week. That's how quickly this game goes. You'll have all these guys on screen right now, and also members of the night shift as well for the second innings, which is always pretty fun. So. What do you guys make of that Test series? How do you feel after winning an away series after 4 years? I'm going to start with Chris on this one. What did you make of the Test series, and what do you think of the win?
I mean, you have to be happy with the win. We did perform well in both matches, and especially the bowling side. You can see that there's still some gaps and areas to improve from the South African side. And yeah, I guess we have to see how that goes forward, especially from the batting point of view. The middle order looked, that was our weakest point. But I mean, we won the series. We can't complain too much, and hopefully we're able to address those issues in the future. And similar to what Mr. Butcher said, it's very difficult success breeds success, in that if you're a young player coming into an established, experienced side, you're able to learn a lot more, and you see the expectations immediately. I don't want to judge either Kyle Verreynne or Keegan Peterson too harshly, because they're coming into a side that's in transition. They're still finding their feet, and hopefully they are given an extended run.
Tsepo, I know you were keen on the W. You just wanted the W. Are you just happy with the W, or are there any things that you think that you're like, maybe they could have done this better?
Well, obviously, after the conversation, the heated debate that we had on One World Sports Radio during our batting collapse, the batting obviously needs some work. Collapses are basically unacceptable. I did say that the name of the game was getting the W, and that was what we needed at that time. We needed to make sure that we got over the line, and we did. But let us not ignore that we got over the line against a West Indies side that struggled to bat on the surface. If we had a team that had a few more batsmen that put their hands up, then 324 wouldn't look so good on the last day. Then that batting collapse, which I won't lie, at times it felt like the West Indies could actually do it with the clear targets. If they apply themselves, they actually can. Kyle Mayers was looking very good with Powell in the middle. But the bowling bailed us out once again, and yeah, we can't take away from the quality of the bowling. We are so lucky to have quality pace and spin bowlers. Guys, Keshav Maharaj is the one. If you doubted it, stop doubting it. He's the one. There's no other spinner that we need. He is the one.
Ravi saying that Ravi says you look like a warmed up Jofra Archer in that hoodie.
Yo, I wish it was just for warmth. It's the wisdom tooth. It takes things here. I feel like I'm listening all the time.
Okay, so Tim, I think for me, looking at the Test series, my biggest problem was arresting South Africa's big Achilles heel, which is losing wickets in clumps, being able to play the situation. I know Dean Alga said he wanted to play boring cricket when the season started, when he became captain and the series started. And we got a sense of that, especially in that first innings, in the first match, where essentially Rassie and Quinton just slowed the game down and just kept on piling pressure on the West Indies. The other thing that I was happy with that, but then the problem, obviously, it's the losing of the wickets. It irritates me and it bothers me that as an adult, you can watch wickets fall and you walk in thinking that it might not, but then somehow you do the exact same thing as the guys before you. I know Mark Butcher said quite a lot. There was a campfire where the guys came together and they aligned and there were honest conversations, which I'm happy about. And to a certain extent, it feels to me that Mark Butcher had to try and do some sort of a restart and kickstart the fire to try and get this team going. Has he managed to do that? Or will we find ourselves against better opposition losing games that we should be winning or making elementary mistakes as well, like we've been before?
We'll only know that when we play them. We'll only know when we play the likes of England and Australia and India. It's a good start. It's a start in the right direction. A win is a win. What I thought was very important was what Ergar said after the match. And he's talked about the importance of the buy-in from the squad. And he made reference to what has happened before and the fact that there was not necessarily that buy-in from the players. And I think that was a huge, huge... You saw every wicket that was taken. You saw the pleasure within the players. You saw them together as a squad. They look like they're playing for each other. That is extremely important. There are problems, but how each individual had an input in the series is extremely important. Even somebody as small as Carl Verreynne. Carl Verreynne is 27. In the context of the match, the context of the situation, was extremely important, just as everybody else's contribution was. That buy-in cannot be just put aside. It looks like a team that wants to play for each other.
That's true. I'm all for the Keshav Maharaj, Keegan Peterson duet before games, just to rile up the little bit of a Protea fire there. Yes, we're not an idol side, but we are a very, very good, very good. There's lots of camaraderie there. Gents, Boxing Day is the next time we're supposed to play Test cricket. Will we see the same side? Same squad, or do you think there'll be changes along, and or something that will change? Yes, Chris.
Obviously, the biggest change would be a fit Temba Bavuma and what sort of changes that forces from the rest of the side. I think other than that, this team looks like everyone there deserves an extended run. There's no questions that that's our best bowling lineup. That's really what it has to be. There may be some tinkering in the batting lineup, and I don't know exactly how the South African selectors will treat Temba's returning. If they followed previous policy, you'd imagine he does come in for Verreynne. But
I think Cal spoke about in his press conference about him being spoken to by Mark and Dean, and he kind of knows his role in the side. What do you think they said to him?
What they said to Carl Verreynne, that's actually a difficult question to answer. It depends on when. Are you saying before the game?
Okay, let me phrase it like this. Because they said to him that he'll have many opportunities in the 2 years in the side to be able to play. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Because it kind of feels like Temba's gonna come back in if that's the case.
No. Then I understand and I agree. Carl Verena, as you said, 27 years old. He's just made his way into the international setup.
23.
He's
Sorry.
23.
That's the
Oh,
important part of it.
23. You see, that's even younger. 2 years from now, what he's going to be 25. He has
Wait,
now he has.
Hold up. He's 23 and he's got 3,000 first class rights.
Yeah.
Come on,
bang the
Alex.
door down. Yeah.
Come on,
And the average is 56.
Yeah,
Okay.
You see, that's the
Okay.
point. You see, the man is so young. When it comes to time, he has more than enough time to sort of establish himself in the team. More than enough time to wait for Quinton de Kock to sort of just
Guys,
just stumble with form. But
this guy could
I
be
think-
our Sachin.
oh, for real.
And there's nothing wrong with having two wicket keepers.
From a numbers perspective.
But then what I'm saying is his position in the side. If he's going to bat at number 5, that position's already it's already taken. But what we know for sure is that as test matches go on, when someone starts to drop in form, then there's a rotation option, which I think is a new way that we need to start approaching integrating people into the team, because you do want people on the peripheries, not just to be on the peripheries for periphery's sake. They need to be sharp. They need to be test ready. And I think Keegan Peterson and Carl Verena coming in at the same time could present an interesting opportunity for the both of them. Boxing Day test, Keegan Peterson and Carl Verena, I think, could potentially, if Mark Boucher thinks about it, like rotate positions, or at least we wait until we find that, like, until one of them establishes themselves. But there's no rush to get him into the side. I don't think we need to force it. He could ply his trade and come in when Rassie van der Dussen comes in, and he could be at his peak. But we'll see. We'll see. If he keeps knocking on the door, he's going to go through. There's no doubt about
But
that.
surely he's already barged the door down, and you're staring at a guy who could score you in his test career between 8,000 and 12,000 test runs if he's scoring at this rate. At first class. You can even downgrade it. And so my thing is, the big question for South Africa was, we need runs. We need guys who can score runs. And there's a guy sitting there who can score runs with an average of 56, and he's 23 years old, and he's already at 3,000 test runs. Surely it's a situation of, okay, guys, maybe we made and this is me, by the way, giving you a situation. It doesn't mean I believe in this.
Okay.
Maybe we could say, guys, wait, we should have not have made Timber vice captain. Let's actually give that spot to Kyle and let Kyle bat at number 5 for South Africa until the day he wants to retire, because that's what he wants. Unless if Test cricket doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
But then
give him an extended run in the team and let's see what he can do, because it's not like we're picking Aiden Markham straight out of under-19 World Cup and hoping he's going to succeed. We're literally picking someone who scored 3,000 first-class runs and averages 50. And you've got a guy who's played 44 tests, averaged 32, and is not over being dropped. Yes, we've got transformation issues. We'll work those around. But for the sake of moving forward, isn't Kyle the answer at 5?
And it's not like Temba would be shown the door there. It's very clear that we have long-term plans with him on the white ball sides. It's not giving up on Temba. It's just realizing that when I looked at him, I always thought he looked more like a test batsman than anything else. But it's clear that he's actually has been better suited to the limited overs.
Okay. We'll have to see how it plays out, but it is very interesting. And I think thinking of that way and doing a shift would be pretty smart. And also pretty refreshing as well. But yeah, I don't think Carl Verena is going to be discouraged anytime soon. One thing that I also do want to mention is Dean Algar as captain is the bomb. I don't know why we didn't do this a long time ago, guys. Like, I remember when we were still wondering who's going to be Test captain when Faf du Plessis was gone, and they interviewed Dean Algar, and he said,
we had those 6 options.
Bruh,
there was that ESPN article that had like 6 options. It was Temba, it was Rassie, it was Dean, it was
Maharaj. He throws himself
Aiden, and I'm still there
Aiden Markram. Come on, bro. But Dean Algar even said it when they interviewed him. But I'm the obvious choice, and I was like, yeah, he's the obvious choice. And now you look at it, you look at the players. First of all, the bowling attack, when everyone else got wickets. When Keshav got that hat-trick, That last ball, who were the two guys jumping all over him? It was Lungi and it was Rabada. The bowling attack are like this. There's an energy in the side that is just, it's nice to watch. It may be just because we're winning, but even when we're losing, you could see, hey, bruh, it's here. Dean Algar, when he got Carl Mayers, that catch, bro, the relief he had, that was the relief all South Africans had, and that's what I like to see. So yeah.
Okay, now let's move on to the T20 series. The Test series is over. South Africa finally has an away series win, and now we've got the test of the T20 series. There's 5 T20s, all live on One World Sports Radio. Remember, we are a radio station, so we won't have live pictures. You'll have our beautiful faces on the one side with a scorecard in the middle, and we'll be giving you live broadcast commentary. If you don't want to see our faces, you can always go to 1WSR.com. I've got the West Indies squad here just to show you that essentially they're looking to return a few heavyweights if it wants to work. Okay, it doesn't want to work. Let's see if my South African squad works. Okay, no, it doesn't. So I'll read out some of the heavyweights that there was. Oh, here we go. So from a West Indian perspective, Karen Pollard is in the side. Dwayne Bravo, Sheldon Cottrell. You've got Shimron Hetmai, Chris Gale, Jason Holder, Lendl Simmons, a very much a pantomime villain for most South Africans is there, including Andre Russell and Evan Lewis, who are all T20 mercenaries that play T20 around the world. What do you guys think of this squad? I for one think it's a World Cup winning squad, by the way.
Yeah,
that's
exactly why it's there. There's no mystery behind why all these players are suddenly back. There is a World T20 at the end of the year. And that's clearly important to these players.
Six of them were there in 2016, so they've already won it. They've got the experience.
So I think my question to you guys, looking at the South African squad, is what do you want to see in these next 5 games? We've got about 15 to 20 to about 18 games towards the World Cup. They start now on Saturday. Timber's going to be captaining all of them. Hanno Claessen's no longer going to be captaining. What are you expecting from this group of players that are assembled over these next couple of days? And we'll go into specifics as probably next week Tuesday as to what are the combinations and stuff like that. But just to start, Tim, what do you want to see?
I want to see a plan with the batting. I want to see a consistent approach when it comes to the batting. So we have an approach. So we go hard at the top 6. We go right. We want 70 of those 6 overs, and if it's 3 wickets, it's 3 wickets. So what? Or it's 40 for no loss, and you go big at the top 6 with the last 6 overs. I don't want to see muddled thinking. That's my problem. I'm a bit worried it's going to be a bit of muddled approach.
Who opens with Quinton?
Timber. How?
Timber.
The fitness, I guess, is still an issue on that front, at least.
Timber.
He looked fine. He had no strapping on his finger when they took the team photo.
I have an argument. that whole finger thing. That whole finger injury could be a conspiracy. I think they were trying to leave Timber out just to, let's test 2 debutantes. There's a conspiracy there. Anis Mohammed will tell you about it.
Hitting the ball a little hard towards Timber on purpose during the fielding.
So my thinking is that because Faf's not playing in this tour, Timber bats at 3, and because we're playing on I don't know what the wicket is, but in preparation for playing on slower wickets, like the Lions did in Durban with Timber coming in at 3, I'm thinking that Aiden Markram opens with Quinny as a placeholder for Faf. So when Faf enters the squad later on in the year, Aiden becomes the first reserve and Faf bats at 2 with Quinny. I know Quinny likes batting with Timber, which is why I think we all went there. And I would love to see that. Then Aiden bats at 3 and Faf as the placeholder. I don't mind. But I think that's where it's going to be. Tim, what do you want to see from this T20 series?
I want to see competitive.
Oh, not
series.
Tim. Sorry.
I'm
just going crazy.
If you could repeat the question then after that.
Just what do you want to see from this test series from the Proteas?
I guess less experimentation in selection than we've seen in the recent T20 series. As we get closer to the World T20, we need to start nailing down exactly who the first choice 11 is. And although you want to get some more experience into the backup seamers, Magala and Williams, in case something happens during the World T20, you really do want to be giving game time to who you think is your strongest side.
Okay. I'm with you there, Mark Butcher. I want to see 9 of the 11 starters at the World Cup, probably for the last 3 T20s of the tournament. If you're watching this, I don't know if you watch this, Mark, but if you do, I'm a big fan of yours as a player. As a coach, not so much, but I still love you. Please. We want to see. Oh, well done on the Test Series win, but we want to see 9 of the 11. I know the 2 spots that are available. Imran Tahir's one of the starting spots. I think he should start, and then the other starting spot is Faf du Plessis. And I'm thank God that the AB stuff is done. Like honestly, honestly. Tsepo, yes, Chris.
Oh, no, it's going to be silly. I was just going to say,
no,
so everyone listening to this tweet, hashtag #4 thinks 9/11 is a good idea. 9 out of 11.
Okay.
But don't do that. We need him poor. He can't be put on any watch list. He's important for the running of this podcast.
And then Tsepo, what do you want to see?
Yeah, much like you guys said, I want to see consistency. I want to see our best starting 11. Quite frankly, I feel that IPL robbed us of that against Pakistan. So in the last series, it was all, you know what, it was close. But if our real guys were here, I don't want to have that. I want to see how good we are, and then I'll make my own judgments from there, because I still have a lot of reservations. I don't have any opinions about the T20 World Cup because I still don't know who our best team is. So yeah, a clear plan, a solid plan, and our starting 11, please.
Of the what's your score prediction, Tsepo, for this series? Do you think we're going to lose badly?
Yo, as in like out of 5.
Yes, scoreline.
That's difficult to say. Once again, because we haven't seen our starting 11. In the series.
The good thing for you, Tsepo, there's no Bjorn Hendricks, by the way, so he's going home.
Yeah, of course not. This guy needs to stop. Don't get me started on this man. Bjorn Hendricks, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but look, bro, don't play international cricket for us. But as I was saying,
Old Tsepo's idea. Old Tsepo's wedding, by the way.
Yeah, 100%. I take responsibility for that. With that said, I'm not sure. As you said, tons of firepower there in the West Indies.
Dude, it's out of 5. Just give us a number, dude.
Okay.
What's the score line?
3-2 to South Africa.
Ooh. Very patriotic from Tsepo. Tim, are you as patriotic?
4-1 West Indies.
Ooh. But we're going to beat them in the World Cup knockout round when we meet them, right? Because we'll have seen them 5 times. Yes, most definitely.
We'll have Tahir, so it's all good.
And Faf back. Faf, if you're watching this, all the best with your concussion, my man. It's not it's the toughest of injuries. Ooh, that knock. Ooh, sorry, man.
Ooh.
Chris?
I'm going to do the Glenn McGrath cop-out. 5-0 South Africa. Book it in, no doubt.
Book it in, baby.
Are you on fire?
It does look like it.
No. I'm chilling by a humidifier. I'm giving you that smoke machine lifestyle here.
So, Chris, you said the Glenn McGrath? What's the number?
Glenn McGrath, every time there's an Ashes series and they ask for his prediction, he says 5-0 Australia. And I'm
5-0 South Africa.
Yeah.
Attaboy, yes. Chris.
And I'm going with you, Chris. 5-0 South Africa. Temba Bavuma's going to have a perfect record when he starts this thing. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be rolling into this World Cup like we normally do at other World Cups, winning games. Okay, guys, I think we're going to just leave it there. Oh, yes, one last question. Do you think any of the guys who was the supposed substitutes, Magala, Yanaman, Markram, Lazard, will get game time here? Or Reza Hendricks and Bjorn Fortuin? Do you think Mark's going to try and see them all, or has he seen enough?
I think we'll probably see some rotation. We're not going to play the same 11 all 5 games, but some of those seem like maybe it's the position we find ourselves in. If we're 4-0 up going into the last, give the other guys a chance.
Do you think Calvarain is going to play? Now that we're in white ball, where we're in T20, since he's like reserve wicketkeeper number 3.
I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I hope so.
Probably not. Probably
I mean, we
not.
really expected him to see him
How
play
much
against
money are you guys
Pakistan, and
willing
that
to
didn't
put? There's
happen.
going to be a Calvarena question in this entire series.
Oh, for Mark Boucher.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be at least one.
Definitely.
I can put money on it because I think I can enter those conferences and ask.
What do you think
Mark
about?
Butcher, what do you think of Calvarena? Oh no, he's good. He's just a reserve wicketkeeper. Oh, thanks, Mark. Okay, guys. But before we go, remember, guys, everyone watching and listening, 8 o'clock South African time, you'll be hearing the team bringing you the first T20 international in Grenada, or we won't be in Grenada, but it's happening in Grenada between the West Indies and South Africa. West Indies have their heavyweights, and South Africa also have their heavyweights. So it could be a heavyweight clash, but from a pound-to-pound perspective, I think the West Indies might be running that score a little bit higher than the South Africans from a cricketing perspective and just a body size perspective, because those men are just massive from the West Indies.
Units.
To close out the show, let us play
Oh no!
the full
No.
Quota
No.
Quiz.
No, I'm so bad at this game.
And I haven't even done any of it. If it's T20 questions between the two sides, I'm in a lot of trouble. I don't
If it's
remember
international.
international T20s for longer than a year.
That's so good.
Let's
How do you
see,
prepare
guys.
for these things? How do you prepare?
You don't prepare. The whole point
just
of the
get-
full Quota Quiz is that, and for all those watching and listening for the first time, I just ask questions that are possibly impossible to answer. There are some freebies there and there, but it's what it is. Wahid pretty much nailed it last time. So
guy.
you're all up against
Yeah.
Wahid when he comes back. So I've got 6 questions this time, guys. And so with those 6 questions, as always, I'm going to ask you guys to pick a number. Tim, I'm going to start with you. 1 to 6. What's your first number?
3.
Number 3. I think Tim's got a very lovely answer. Question. SA's top 3 run scorers this series were De Kock, 237 runs, Van der Dissen at 125 runs, and Alga at 87 runs. Who was number 4 on the runs list for South Africa?
Kagiso Rabada.
Yay! That's the first question, and Tim has got a point off the bat. Kagiso Rabada with 65 runs at an average of 32.5. Tim gets 1 on the board. Temple,
Doesn't
pick
he
a
get
number.
2?
But not
Yeah,
3.
2
Oh,
points.
2 points on the board, yes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
right system.
I'll take 6.
6. Okay. Number 6 is, how many times in Quinton de Kock's career has he been dismissed in the 90s? He was dismissed in the 90s in this last test match. How many more times has that happened? And so give me the total number.
4.
It's a good guess.
Teppo with number 4, which is the correct answer, Teppo. Congratulations. You get 2 points.
Yes! Come on, Wicked! Come on! Get in there!
Hey, Teppo, don't run away. Don't run away. Chris, what is your number?
No pressure. Suddenly, the expectations for me to be the stats guy on the broadcast may be undermined. If I'll go 5, 1 for each of the wins South Africa's going to get in
Okay.
the series.
Oh, I love to
So,
hear it.
Chris, your question. In the World Test Championship that's ended right now for South Africa, which bowler had the lowest average for South Africa throughout the World Test Championship?
So no limits on how many wickets they had to take.
No. Lowest average, no limit on wickets.
Okay, the wickets doesn't come into it here. I can't remember anyone coming on sneaking a few wickets for no run. So I'm going to say Anrich Nortje because I think he's been the main
What
guy.
about Bjorn Mulder?
And Anna is a good guess, but it's not the correct answer, Chris. Anybody want to hazard a guess between Tim and Teppo?
I'll take it.
Teppo, what's your answer?
Vian Mulder.
Vian Senior Player Mulder is not the correct answer. I'm going to give Tim a lifeline to see if he can come up with a name.
Cutie.
Can you
Lungi
imagine
Giti
Mr.
is
Bada?
also not the correct answer.
So we
The
just
correct
named
answer
the
for
whole
that,
squad.
it's Luto Sipamla. He took
Oh.
10 wickets, an average of 16 runs. So, Chris, you are on 0. So, after the first round, which is we've got 2 rounds, it's 2 points to Tim, 2 points to Tepo, and no points to Chris. Chris has taken now question 5. So, Tim, what's your number? You get your number 1, number 2, and number 4 are still available.
4.
Good lad.
Number 4, another World Test Championship question. This time on the other end, which batsman from South Africa, in all the South Africans who participate in World Test Championship, has the highest average for South Africa?
I looked at this all day yesterday while we were on. I looked at the whole thing.
And
Surely
it
there's a
was
time
Markram.
limit.
It was Markram before the series started. It's not Markram anymore. Oh,
Surely
God.
come on,
there's a time
Chris.
Tim.
You said,
Huh?
what did you
No, are
what's
you
your
asking
answer?
for
Tim?
my answer?
Dean Alga. Unfortunately, Dean Alga is not the correct answer. Anybody else want to hazard a guess?
Quinton de Kock.
Tempo says Quinny the Cock. Chris?
Well, so Temple's answer is clearly not.
No,
It's
I'll
good.
reveal who has the right
Yeah,
answer
okay.
if there
So
is a right
Olga
answer.
scored the most runs, I think. Again, it might be
He
someone
did.
who's just. I don't know.
So if Chris doesn't know, the correct answer is Senaran Mutusami. He averaged
What?
49.
What?
Batted
There's
4
no way.
times, 2 not outs. In those not outs, he had a 47 and a 33. And the times he was
That's hard.
out, he had enough runs to get him to 98. So his average is 49. Only played 2 tests for South Africa at the start of the World Test Championship. So Tim's taking question 4. Tepo, you're left with question number 1 and question number 2.
I'll take number 2.
Number 2. This is Keshav Maharaj's 4th 5-wicket haul. Which country did he get his previous one, which is his 3rd away 5-wicket haul?
Okay, he didn't bowl in South Africa.
And that's
I
not
said away, so it can't be South
Oh,
Africa.
damn. India.
India's a very, very good guess, but not correct, Tepo. Chris, you have your pen up.
Sri Lanka. Was it
Sri
when he took his nine
Lanka is also not a correct answer.
Oh,
Tim.
has to be. Come, Tim. It's there. You know it. I know
I
it.
don't. England.
Come on. England.
England
Oh.
is close, but not the right answer. That last 5-wicket haul for Keshav was in New Zealand in 2017.
No way. Is that New Zealand series?
Yes. He got
The one
6
with-
for 20. But I know, Chris, I'll check it for you and we'll try to figure out if you have the right answer. Because when you said Sri Lanka, I was like, that's
Yeah, he took
possibly
9.
true.
He took 9, and that was more recent than 2017. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, Chris, I'll give you 2 points because I remember that 9-wicket haul. Sorry.
I'll double check because
Okay.
that could still be wrong, but the New Zealand thing's also wrong. We'll have a.
Yeah, we'll have a
look.
check. Well, Chris, you can check for me. Since readmission. Oh, wait. Okay, so Chris,
Yeah, it's Chris's question
your
now.
question. Chris, your question.
Okay, I'll put the phone away then.
I'll check it.
Since readmission,
Oh,
has
yeah.
have been involved in
Oh no.
on a hat
You
trick
read the
while
question. I'll
batting
let you read the
as
question for the
victims.
listeners. Sorry.
Yeah, so since readmission, South Africa have been involved on one hat trick while batting as victims. It was in the 2017 Test match at the Oval. Who was the bowler on that day?
Moeen Ali. Last 3 wickets. of the
Congratulations,
match, I think,
Chris.
as well.
You have 2 points, and we're gonna have to check
yes.
whether Keshav Maharaj took for you to take the 3, and I assume that you probably do have it.
Yeah,
I'd-
it's that 9 in Sri Lanka.
Yes, yeah, in Sri Lanka, as he got
Chris.
the answer. So Chris wins the full quota quiz this week with 3 points, and Tim and Tepo have 2. So yeah, guys, that's how it is. Well done, Chris. You'll be getting some sort of prize in the mail. Might be nothing, might be something. Just go to
T-shirt
your.
with some Paul's face on it. That'll be the first thing on my list.
Yeah. So I think from my end, as I try and switch off everything, if it wants to work. But from my end, do you have any final words for the test series, the T20 series, guys, as we go into next week?
Let's win.
You just want W's.
All
Chris?
about the W's, baby.
I'd like to
I
see
second that.
Rabada knock Gale over all 5 matches. His former Lions teammate. I love watching him bat, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in the hutch early every single game.
No. Court Bavuma, bold Rabada. I want to see that. Or Court Van der Dussen, bold Rabada, because
So
they
the
are
Lions
all teammates.
combination.
Yeah. The possible Lions combinations. Tim?
I'd like to see George get a good run in this series.
Want to see him
What
with the
about
bat.
Bjorn? Is
I know,
Bjorn just
so
going to
I'm
be
a-
the guy
I-
who's going to travel with the team and not do anything?
I'm a Team George fan, I'm afraid. He was good against England. This few games he played. I'd like to see George Linder get a run.
Ooh, the Cobra's bias is still there. Cobra's bias is still there. We see you. We'll wait for you and come domestic, when the domestic season starts. But thank you very much, guys, for joining. Thank you to everyone who's watched and listened. Remember, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. And also remember, you can interact with us on these various platforms. Please do follow, subscribe, do all the things that are required on these platforms to keep engaging with us. And then remember, most importantly, these T20s will be live on One World Sports Radio, 1WSR.com, and on this YouTube channel, as well as on YouTube, on Twitter and Facebook. So please do support us with that. From everyone else here at the Full Quota Podcast, thank you. I see Tepo's gone already, so cheers, John. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and goodbye and good night. Le sale kakahiso.
Cheers, guys.